Welcome to Cocktails with Kurt. This is episode 38, where today's featured cocktail is the Boulivardier. That sounds like a classic cocktail, Kurt.
It is. Been around since the time of Prohibition. The real short story here is during Prohibition, a lot of the great American bartenders of the time bugged the hell out. Went to Europe, other places, I'm sure.
Well, didn't we featured a couple of cocktails developed during that era by Americans who were in places like Tokyo and someplace out in the South Pacific, I think, too.
Yeah. This one was at Harry's New York bar, I think, in Paris. And it's a simple drink. It is basically a Negroni, which we've done before, I think in one of our first 10 episodes. But it replaces gin with bourbon. So, pretty easy.
Do you want to tell folks where the word or the name Boulivardier comes from?
Another American expat was running a magazine, basically the New Yorker in Paris, and it was called Boulivardier. So that's where the name came from. It was in his honor.
Okay.
All right. So, again, this is a Negroni, but with bourbon.
Remind folks real quick what's in a Negroni.
The Negroni is gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So instead, we are going to be using bourbon, or the wild turkey, which we found recently. Campari, which we're starting to run low on. And then sweet vermouth. As always, we're using the Cocchi Vermouth di Torino.
Not always. We don't always use that one. We use Dolan sometimes, right? Or do you mean just for the Negroni?
For the sweet vermouth, we always use this.
Okay, sorry.
We've used Dolan before, and Dolan is good. It's better than a lot of the alternatives out there. But given the alternative, or given the option, we will use the Cocchi over the Dolan.
Okay, so recap. Sweet vermouth, we prefer the Cocchi. Dry vermouth, we prefer the Dolan.
Correct.
Or the sweetgrass, if it's available.
Or the sweetgrass, if it's available. Yes.
Okay.
And not in everything, because the vermouth really makes a difference.
True. So it's been a long time since I think it was episode 4. Can you give a brief recap on what Campari is?
It is a bittersweet orange liqueur.
I recall some discussion of beetles or something, right? Didn't it used to be made out of...
The colors used to come from crushed beetles.
Okay.
Probably they're scarabs.
And of course, bourbon is a whiskey.
Bourbon is a whiskey. It is an American whiskey made with predominantly corn. I think it has to be at least 50% corn in the mash.
In order to be deemed whiskey? Or to
in
earn
order
that
to
moniker?
be called bourbon.
Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. Can you tell it's Wednesday afternoon after a long workday? Okay. Or Wednesday evening, I guess.
So, really simple. And
every time you say that, I hear very simple, very easy. Who said that?
Very simple, very easy.
Please.
Chef Tell.
Chef Tell.
From Evening Magazine?
Well, I don't know.
I think it was
I can picture him plain as day, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was
where
Evening Magazine.
Okay.
All right. So, 1.25 ounces of bourbon. And obviously, this is a stirred drink.
You know, Kurt, some stuff might be obvious to you, but not obvious to everybody else.
True. Stirred drink because it's all spirits. Yeah, it's been a while since we opened this thing.
Do you think something like a Aperol could be swapped out for this?
Possibly, it's going to have a sweeter flavor. So if you only have one or the other, you can use it. But
Well, okay, so I was just trying to offer a save here in case you couldn't open that, and then we had to resort to the Aperol.
so
But I should have had faith in you. Okay.
1 ounce of Campari. And then 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. By comparison, quickly to the Negroni, the Negroni is 1 part each gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So this is slightly different. The bourbon is a little bit heavier than the Campari, or
Then the gin.
the bourbon is a little heavier than the gin in the Boulivardier versus the Negroni.
Can you talk briefly for a second about why you put the vermouth on the counter when
Say
it
what?
Talk briefly about why the vermouth is on. Well, don't make noise when I'm trying to ask you a question, because then you're going to ask me to repeat it again. You put the vermouth on the counter, although it should live in the fridge.
Yeah.
So you just want to
It should live in the fridge. Fortified wines are fine on the shelf as long as they're kept in a cool, dry place until you open them. Being wine-based, they don't have a great shelf life if you leave them out. But if you put them in the fridge, they have a much longer shelf life.
Thank you. Now you may proceed.
This is where you have the limit of how much ice to put in the mixer glass when it starts falling out.
Rule of thumb. All right.
Rule of thumb. And for the record, this is the first time you've tried this one, so we'll see how it turns out.
Well, it's got bourbon. How bad can it be? It's interesting how much the ice kind of settles in.
Yeah, again, the ice is serving 2 purposes. The first is to chill the drink, but it's also diluting the drink, and you get a fair amount of melting if everything is at room temperature.
Is there a traditional glass for this drink, or are you just pulling whatever's on the shelf there?
Traditional glass appears to be cocktail glass, so the coupe in this case. And actually I've seen a couple of different garnishes. One says an orange twist, one says a cocktail sherry. Which would you prefer?
Why do I have to choose one or the other?
That's the choice then.
Okay, I would like
I have
both.
not seen both, but so.
Well, we can do whatever we want. This is our house.
Absolutely. So an orange twist. Get the nice oils in there.
There's been a lot of ambient noise, I think, in this episode between the fridge and the crickets outside and the cats crashing around.
And a cocktail sherry.
Looks fabulous.
So this is the Boulivardier. Till next time, cheers.
Cheers.